Hello, people. I'm not a professional journalist. The journalists are involved with communications to me involving their confessions regarding how they attach me to fake locations and conversations with them. And they attach everyone around everyone to faked and changed conversations with them and with others. They've been lying about the outcome of legal cases. No, as collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones. And forgiveness is for this because the same thing, they have collusions with names on all sides of criminal and civil cases through time, increasingly as collusions with news at the same time in the branches, interbranch switching names, forging names, sequence shifts into databases. WFSB has recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, have faced faked conversations with me about the World Trade Center attack. I was in the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center towers right before they were attacked. And leading up to that, in that context and since, there are people with the name Scalora, and there are others tied to them. People with the names Cololo and the name Demoro years ago. Every once in a while, they would make confessions to me, and they made and we also had roles with judges, prosecutors, foreign and domestic military and medical families involved with child offenders before they got caught, during it, and there are more leaders of the kids, child offenders, because they have their kids' roles with it. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, and his co-defendants, Thaddeus Grabowski, is one of the names on Fox Connecticut News, involved with medical families associated with Eric Mendez and with a Mike Domain and Adam Domain, and people associated at buildings next to Fox Connecticut News, and also with people with the name Pandolf and Ray Reynolds. They were involved also with people named people tied to a Kevin Harris, who had roles with a daughter of a principal at a campus I went to, who had and has more people roles then and now with a principal child abuser, and with pretending it's personal when I mention it because they faked they had been planting evidences, including using their kids for fake motivations. Again, where a forgiveness is necessary because they have roles with foreign bodies since before everyone took oaths. They had roles with predicate acts with facts because they have been attaching everyone to fake words too. That's why it's important to get people onto paper. See, they have words like oh, every word is slash of value too, and this is only increasing because nature shows how it is making hyper additional nature, where it is where we are quality as fact should be nature, and that is only increasing value now through systems tactical ulterior from nature's, where it is itself showing us what, why, and how we hunger, why we have thirst. Tactical ulterior from how the narratives behind that. See, so forgiveness is for this because a breaching method. If you watch, when you see pictures in the distance, look on YouTube, look out aerial photography of any city across the world. How many people need food there, and how many you can't grow food there. Either suburbs were tactically denatured. People can't. Oh, we can make a garden, we can make it work. Forget about it. And you're going to do that while everyone's on the thing. We have to be together. We're charging it employed before our founders were born, North America and South America, a torture method that was simultaneously an extortion slash S method too. And it was a fact to be nature slavery method. Therefore, it was a physical one. Nature shows us that the reason they put black and white in there is because it knew that nature was going to increasingly demonstrate to us more than just the scientific value and the increasing value of the scientific value of a breaching method where there are questions that are honest as the souls for any modern country's names, history, Fox News has producers retired and standing, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with natures of organized crime and criminal foreign influences and pretending others simultaneously, relative to a recent story they did on American history and regarding the window, closing the window to make people not hear, leaving out how and why. With James Madison's plan, James Madison and them had to counter extort, but they had to leave. They had to hide their actual motivation. They had to leave entertained and spoken words, and and or natures of logic, and or logic itself, that they asked us simultaneously through communications, which is distinct from what is said, to explain was and is involved with our torture, extortion, and slavery. And if anyone deals with the extortion of George Washington, honestly, we come to where and how they had to counter extort at 13 locations within more than 13 colonies for only a temporary time, because then people had to speak things that were against the law because they were being measured and maintained from abroad, while that had already been done to them. Since some ancient times before modern religious messengers were born to do damage control, just like Native Americans, thank God for both of them, because none of them have succeeded in explaining, let alone, bringing to fruition the fruition slash s, the value of at last. That phrase associated with the hyper additional nature that everything is, therefore Martin Luther King's, the Martin Luther King Day, for example, as a holiday, and Christmas. You guys left out, because you only had heard left out, the predicate acts with facts method against everyone sickly distinctly, to hide how sickly non-distinctly, which is hyper positive to discern. So they already recorded themselves names A through Z with the suits and ties, counters, and exceptions. Certain type of victim slash hyper victim, victim predator slash hyper predator. And with their descriptions of they'll smile or with their faces will be with that too. They're right there discernible as psychopaths because of the child abuses of themselves, of each, and or that body was sensed, even if it's a majority. Every honest body knows that not one person naturally wanted, even though they're changing, they're telling people, they're lying to American students through our schools, on the records and off the records, and the difference of that exploited. They're pretending other things caused slavery than did. Other things caused our founders to leave it entrenched than did. It had nothing to do with it. In other words, the fact cheaping nature slavery method that forced that was forcing on everyone, and a whole bunch of things at the same time, because no one could see what it was trying to hide, which is nature demonstrating itself to us, but showing us how to use reason. The increasing value of the breaching method. What was behind witch trials, regardless of who made up witch trials? And what things were truths with it. Those truths are being used for lies. You guys speak about economics and values and what Americans think. You guys force, tricked, hurt, and persuaded people to entertain uses of the value of voting where it is not value, which is simultaneously defending definitions in nature of descriptions of exceptions in exception nature that can't defend themselves and afford to be heard. Convictions proper with truth and truth's nature, and regardless if it's being used for lies, the truths are used for lies by that person or someone else, it is increasingly by someone else. This breaching method showed the difference of overt criminal enterprises, adults and kids know, private ones, adults and kids know, and the intelligence family ones. This means interbranch, but it also means other exceptions tied to them, and the state offices, for example, and all that's conjunctive to, and that's adjacent to that, because the difference of that too is the identity of relativity slash hyperrelativity. Therefore, this is too the identity of relativity slash hyperrelativity theory and theorem and one. This live stream, YouTubers, please subscribe to the YouTube channel of Anthony Wall at Little Rap Guy. Romulus's name is, I mean, the name of Little Rap Guy is Romulus. Little Rap Guy is not just a cartoon character. He's a scientific tool, as are the characters of Little Rap Guy and Friends cartoons, which are obfuscated slash counter obfuscated relative to timed conscious uses of connected murders. No other way is apparent connected. But this you have to remember too. There were predicate acts with facts rules like wire crime acts and methods. And child abuses, elderly abuses, homes, the same ones at the same time. Veteran abuses through their own. This is a method that used remotely America before it was America, sustained through humanity through its own names, as names used through systems tactical terror than the one we are actually. So the Institute of Living, for example, they were founded in 1822. They had that on the wall, but they also have that online set on the campus of Harvard Hospital. And they are like a diaspora. They're like a church's version of a diaspora relative to where and to how they have mental health experts, also ones with badges and with gavels who are still tactically, criminally foreign influenced and delusions raw. And how getting away with it is involved because they've been fabricating conversations with people to do it. They've been fabricating whole audio and video transcripts. And dozens of names have roles of predicate acts in my street from Harvard Hospital as the ones who attach me to fake conversations with them. So, and they have whole predicate acts methods, not just next to my house. And they use that. And there were uses of that were also singularly used a bunch of ways. Intercities, at places I live temporary. Whichever places we live is temporary. But in other words, the difference, there's a method recorded here. Every campus I went to, there were connections made between the people with the ones that are criminally foreign influence, planting evidences. Writing forensics when I was a kid had roles with people that Joshua Julian is recorded involved with on off Harvard Hospital with a Mark Violet, a Michael Violet, and some general and demonstrably generals and other natures of people with the military, and how they have the women military and the male military sickly distinctly involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, pretending fake passions and emotions and motivations. And are also not realizing too, because these are people that, and the difference of that, we shouldn't, they brought it up. These are people that are planting sequence shifts. They planted sequence shifts. They post-dated documents inside the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center in Manhattan, right before the attack, as names with all three next to the building, on off it, and on off those spots, and on off the Ninth Circuit Court right next to it too. All sides of those cases, those are people. There's a people that has something to do with their roles with East Hartford. Increasingly, one of the things that connects them, where they are connected some ways constantly, in some ways variably, and where that is relative to, for example, with where Boolean logic and the nature of debates is and has been used functionally by the breaching method that used and uses our database relationships since before computers to excuse me, to exploit us from other locations. What the Civil War was about was how a breaching method had entrenched North America, northern colonies, and southern colonies, sickly distinctly, but also sickly non-distinctly roles with slavery, and how that was functional. It uses functions. It uses algebra the same way nature does, but nature uses it hyper additional way too, that we are not being allowed to appreciate. English was revealed to appreciate this. English is a hyper additional language. All languages are hyper additional. This is all about the same thing. The way it is 1/3/5. Identities of the same sequence / simultaneous nature. So a cell body has a cell as a complete name. It consists of a cell body, cell wall /S. In that complete name, also a semi-nature relationship to the complete body, that is all parts of yours, all cells of your body individually grouped and together. They have a semi-nature relationship to your complete identity. Not even a doctor, I'll delineate their delusions from their criminally foreign influences and their roles keeping people disorganized, for example, and pretending to be about organization. They have criminal insidious natures of positive treatments and negative treatments. No one ever spoke with me about organization. But if you approach them, so they have roles with murders and preventing mandated law, proper reception of the law, because the law locations and the difference between this is where this preaching method, when you deny what is actually discernible, just by having black pupils and whites of eyes at the same time, simultaneously, understanding with exceptions, the exception are involved here. Hyper additional nature is. So the sciences share an identity. We have not appreciated this. I put a link to where and to how. There's not a joke or an end or not just a joke. Any boxing gym without people trying hard, even just one person trying hard at boxing, even if they're not trying hard at the time, they're trying hard, they're going to make the shush sound. Boxing. See how it sounds like that. Also know how Boolean, Boolean, named after a guy, Boolean logic. Observe the nature of descriptions of the descriptions of the histories of the sciences each, because they are used to measure and maintain pseudo-patriotism / hypo-pseudo-patriotism, pretending other, certain type of victim / hyper-victim. We employed the difference, same reason we have, but it employed the difference between how used remotely criminally foreign influence. The branch of the government, for example, blaming on other things others ourselves, what really caused constantly the worst and exploited the worst Jim Crow laws, let alone slavery. Our founders left us to demonstrate how everyone was tortured a whole bunch of ways, connected per method, a singular breaching method, and that everyone was extorted a whole bunch of ways, a singular breaching method. They told us to get the Constitution unabridged. And, to use the negatives slash hyper negatives associated with things like slavery to show the breaching method involved with economies and with the answers to the questions. Why would people profit off of that? They were forced to. Why would people profit off of people stacking across the globe? They were forced to. The suburbs are toxic to nature. They need the food too. Mass farming. This method is perfected before our founders were born. Thank God for the Native Americans being 1/3 of the portion of our founders. And regardless who was fighting with who, and in other words, they were doing damage control because everyone had we're forced to entertain short words with convictions and nature by that, and or nature by that. It was criminal as positive or negative. That is collusions, keeping the breaching method's identity of relationship to all things, therefore to all names, from being discerned, from having been discerned. It is functional where other things, others ourselves, are blamed and we're blamed. It's functional by the breaching method. For what our founders told us to blame on the breaching method. Now, see, the narratives by economies. This is where people don't know how to defend themselves because they cannot fathom what freedom is because it has not been here yet at last. And the nature of debate is there's a complete possession slash hyper possession over it. And but see, all we have to do is keep it real always. Then we got to make hyper positives out of negatives. There's a difference between making positives out of negatives as collusions with criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments and negative treatments at the same time. So a bunch of communications locations and people at Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut, they have roles with a whole bunch of people like Joe Aiello, who's also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed being and having been involved with predicate acts on my street and with people in my area, with people with and child abuses and federal evidences crimes and federal rules of evidences crimes and methods of them and natures of identity thefts and frauds and slanders. There were also intelligence community tied to and as teachers of a Joe Aiello. I never had anything to do with them around campuses. They made an exception after my class graduated. I was supposed to graduate, and how and why I stayed back are people that were. There was a teacher I had was a doctor, was a speech class, but I never had a personal conversation with her verbally. And a Mike Pandolf, and he's got others associated with him. I don't know them. They're trying to make it look like it's personal because they have roles with names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, and along Park Street in Hartford, and at the end of it with males and females who had roles with depositions, with their lawyers and with themselves, and with the courts, foreign as names with foreign and domestic, overt criminal enterprises and private ones. Mike Pandolf's also one of the ones who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, has roles with the Facebook page of the Wethersfield Police, with people with the name Schumack, Joshua Schumack, also involved with planting evidences, identity theft, fraud, slanders, also interreligious spots and KKK themes, with the people on off Hartford Hospital involved with wire crimes with the phones too, with Wethersfield Police and with the FBI, replacing what's actually recorded, just totally fabricating transcripts to make things, even on campuses, filmed 24/7. They're making it look like, they're using it to make it look like things were filmed that never were. Because they have collusions with uses of all campuses, criminally foreign influence originally still. As names increasingly on my street and on off the park, the fields and corners of streets, planting evidences roles, fake motivations, all investigators, to an extent, is discernible. are being and have been used remotely, criminally for an influence, certain type of victim slash hyper victim. The difference between that and the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones, because they have collusions with each other when they use words like adult, when they use words like male, like female, with their when they speak for difference. The interbranch has recorded remote uses of their syntax tied to difference. We have nature's difference. We have as why we have black. We have the same color eyes, black pupils, while we have different color eyes simultaneously slash hyper simultaneously, because we didn't invent these quality aspects in nature's, not just to us but to the other bodies of life. There are quality aspects in nature that we share that we didn't invent and they didn't invent, demonstrated that way. The hyper invisible but still discernible is distinct from the invisible but still discernible. The predicate and the subject are invisible but still discernible. Why and how? There are 7 names for the verb. It's hyper invisible but still discernible. The sciences share an identity. Appreciation of what a predicate act is also simultaneously capable of appreciating what criminal insidiousness is as something invisible but still discernible, slash hyper invisible but still discernible. See how the predicate act is value to the identity of the law. I'm not a lawyer, not a police force, I'm not a criminal, I'm not a judge. There's a Judge Killian, there's a Judge Smith. There are other before the Judge Killian involved with the Leahy family. There's ones with the name Dingleberry and or Dewberry, Dr. Dingleberry and or Dewberry, and Leahy, a whole bunch of Leahy family members, male and female, also with Hartford Hospital's Institute of Living, and with the Schwartz guy, whatever. They're all tactically delusions raw too. And they attach me and others to fake conversations about the World Trade Center. They have roles with car dealerships and with the owners of the dealerships and with their kids and their mental diagnosis and all. They run into Hartford Hospital and they hide life progressions. And the intelligence community uses crime methods where they make people say statements, make statements, and make it look like, so you can't describe what happened after because you didn't even have a conversation. They're putting everyone in fake conversation, fake responses to them planting evidences. All investigators, and all campuses are already been used criminally for an influence, black people, tactically, simultaneously, tactically delusions raw, simultaneously pretending other too. Because reason as means to discern, and reasons descriptions are and have been tactical ulterior. Then these delusions are out too, while they're pretending they have legitimate theories on how reason works. They have mental diagnosis that they know aren't true. These are they have acceptations of the value of their paychecks that they know they owe money. They owe more than money. And they're wasting. This is right where Hartford Hospital and all the hospitals are great places. And these are great people. And they don't have time for the punk, the identity theft, fraud, slanders. They have whole predicate acts methods with the lawyers too. And with the difference of their roles and the people they are at adjacent and conjunctive to them. Uses of the fake motivations with their kids they bring up as the intelligence, not just the interbranch, but the interbranch too. Even while they're involved with predicate acts with them, pulling them into stories with the news, because they can't be honest with the news. So the news is showing how they already had roles with predicate acts methods. They'll pretend passions and emotions tied to Sandy Hook, tied to victims. They'll play news and in other words, and they're preventing mandated law. And they're trying to keep mouths shut, and they're lying. They're influencing people to change what people say, which is important because it's tied to them fabricating transcripts and planting evidences at crime scenes, lying about the outcome of cases with news articles, and pretending to care about the integrity or pretending to believe in the integrity of information in databases, even if it's true, what the people in New York City or Hartford did before the shootings that are out of control since the, in other words, and they have ties to the ones that are less common, but they have roles in Wethersfield. And I don't know her name. I don't know other names. The ones on Two Route Highway and off of Two Route Highway, conjunctions to Two Route Highway and to Hangdog Lane. They increasingly, and people tied to a Sal Civiello. I never had conversations with Sal Civiello. And I did not respond to him with his confession after he had graduated. Because I only know, in other words, I went to go to a Cub Scout meeting there once. And him and a Rich Dombrowski, in other words. I was a gentleman, in other words, we just sat there and then I left. And I never went back. And regardless of their motivations, narratives is also a part with it. He had conversations with people, had conversations with my fourth grade teacher, who had also had roles with predicate acts with my second grade. I found out about in second grade. They had spied on me when I was in first grade. And I'm using that spy because sickly distinctly, President Obama, sickly distinctly, President Trump, and sickly distinctly, President Biden and others are that certain type of victim / hyper victim too. That is preventing what chief's value is at. President / chief. Again, they have this narrative. The breach was already here. In the window narrative, even if it was made up by our founders to counter it, it also entails how it was also coming in, still is increasingly coming in. The window. The nature of remit and the relativity of this, for example, to alpha value, where there is a difference of criminal insidiousness natures of positive. And hyper-positive, that is not criminal insidiousness nature. Its system is an identity of relationship to all things. We could ignore this hyper-native system, but it will only demonstrate with negative value nature progressions, acts in nature. So Hartford Hospital's Institute of Living has to be surgically separated from actual health care. And they have criminally foreign influence uses of their databases and roles with names at Hartford courts and at New Britain Superior Court and at Connecticut District Court, with the names also with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and a whole bunch of different countries, including Russians, involved with medical corruption, tactical delusions with psychiatry. These are people on off the state corrections offices, on off the state judicial branch offices, involved with all names on all sides of cases, news at the same time, and the interbranch with predicate acts and timed uses of that also singularly used, like the Witness Protection Program, as these names involved with the corner of streets near me, with a Joshua Stryker and a Joshua Julian, also as the ones involved with medical and inter-services people with predicate acts before they took their oaths, pretending they don't realize. Yeah! So they also attach me and others to fake behavior, positive and negative, weak and strong. These are also people, this is military, criminally foreign influence. They have roles on off New Britain, Central Connecticut State University, and Trinity College has roles of predicate acts on my street with the names like the name Cololo that Wethersfield police brought up, and they didn't put the whole name. Also, they were involved on YouTube with typing comments, even if it is not them. They're involved with the interbranch, with the wire crimes of Wethersfield police, falsified police reports, fake conversations with me. That never were at all. I know they went in there, they brought up conversations with kids that I didn't have anything to do with. Then they had them to ask some questions about it and wanted me to go to speak with those police. These are the ones I caught with child abusers, and with mayors. So from before I was in grammar school, and when there were ones when I was in there, a mayor, former Mayor Gold. and his family's involved increasingly with people at Whiting Forensics, involved with planting evidences on all sides of my house, including with Sense and Sensibilities. They force, trick, hurt, and persuade people, force people to speak through others as collusions, or to stay silent. Where the opposite is increasingly needed. In other words, I asked you. In other words, no one could go back and be honest. All exceptions in exception nature created by me or other people too. That is consciously being and has been used remotely. You catch someone, they're still, even, I'm not just using their evidences. Even if they made up all those evidences, there are uses worse and worse natures of child abuses than the upskirt pictures rolls that are also further recorded on Twitter that the FBI has roles with, criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and of precedents and of the value of that and exceptions. Again, they're using exceptions, tactical ulterior, from how nature uses exceptions, the exception nature, from the ways we do, finite, grouped, and together, but also hyper additionally. So we could better than just debug where how programming works too. This is a description of how reason works. The description of how the difference between sequence nature or simultaneous nature, because they are both simultaneous natures. And they're both differentially, but in some ways, but increasingly the same way. An identity of conjunction to themselves, relative to and as. The value /S of how everything is increasingly valued. Again, but now we have value systems, value nature systems, tactical ulterior. And I'm referring to nature system as nature with identity needing more words for itself than one. For the same reason, the verb needs 7 words for itself. And every subject individually grouped in together simultaneously too has / increasing identities of value / value progression coming into while not being space / existence. Its trinity is how it is manifest. It is its identity of volume. Its identity of volume's identity relationship to itself. And is the value of that 3 ways equally increasing with any subject we could examine individually, grouped, or together. So dozens of names from Hartford Hospital also have roles with people named DeMoro and Aiello, with medical corruption with child offenders, and with people with the name Mendez and Kerr and Domain next to Fox Connecticut News. And there are people that know my name there that I don't know them, associated with Two-Mile Highway and Hangdog Lane has a whole bunch of probate court judges and family members and intimate ties who have had timed collusion with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. Increasingly, people involved with a Kevin Dillon, an Anna Dillon, and an Annie Dillon, and people that went to my middle school that I never had classes with. And the ones that were in my classes, they put little tricks, fake ties to me, fake nature ties to me behind my back. Also, sometimes with their teachers, because of the methods they're using, and they're lying about their motivations for it. They've been putting the kids with fake locations with others. I never saw Ray Claw, my neighbor, around my middle school campus in my life. And so they have something to do with the families next to the state capitol. And they increasingly have those names roles with other natures, body dumping spots, untimely deaths. And names next to those spots in news at the same time, collusions with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. Have the corners of buildings and streets unknowingly involved with nature, theft, fraud, slanders nature. Also, as rats, pretending other people are rats. Get off my name. Then it sounds like you know them. These are people pretending that me and others say that everyone's evil because they have a whole bunch of people that work for them involved with the use of those locations, criminally foreign influence. They also have roles with the violets, with the uses of, and the cololos with them, and other people as the ones next to the exits, and with the unions involved with the qualities and natures of drugs. And then they give the kids the good part, and then they take it away. They do this stuff, and they're attaching kids to fake uses of drugs because of the powers of that. By where and how those are families involved with the interbranch at all sides of cases, where they have collusions with them, putting sequence shifts, ignoring while they put fake evidences, and as stacking on collusions with the people between our campuses doing it. So there's a Kevin Harris, and there's a mother of his. I don't even know her name. And there are people that were involved with my kindergarten class. That I don't know if that's true, but that's what they put on paper. And these are people with the whiting forensics, with judges and prosecutors and medical offenders, crimes with their patients and criminals before they got caught, like a principal child abuser, and with people who were involved with the witness protection program through time. Also involved with Joshua Julian, also involved with the military inter-services people. These are people with the Air Force, involved with the Paul Kelly, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, per the intelligence people. I never had a conversation. I never responded to his thing. I was just sitting in the car to try to make fake exceptions. His neighbors are also involved with identity theft, frauds, and predicate acts against me and little kids, with child offenders with WTNH, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. People at corners of streets with them are involved with digital child offenders, with black and white female judges too, rolls with it because of what I caught them doing, using. I caught the breaching method using the Connecticut State Judicial Branch offices and the state corrections offices for. These are also people that have been using my names at Connecticut boxing gyms as collusions with the same house / S involved with wire crimes, mail crimes, falsified police reports. And as the police that have fake conversations with me as a kid, now as an adult, distinctly. As the ones that forced Saudis to rolls with them. They forced my Saudi friends rolls with them. I don't even understand that. And with ones with names Scalora. That one's named Demora and Kalal recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Involved with people who went to my grammar school and schools I went to before that, with predicate acts with them, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones. They're doctors, they have medical doctors, and foreign and domestic, overt criminal enterprise, people with the witness protection program, people involved with uses of home break-ins and wire crime acts and methods with them, people that work for the phone companies like AT&T or SAT or both. Nothing personal. I don't even know which one it is. The ones with the name Spada and Christopher Walters. They're one of the ones involved with the name Cololo. Also, there's a Phil Cololo further with a whiting with the ones on my street involved with people from other areas and their extended family members. Also, as the ones on off the World Trade Center attack, as our sides rolls with it, who also forced again the Saudis to roll with them. But don't forget how the Saudis were forced to roll. I mean, we were forced to roll too. See, this is a game that these are people when they were kids. Tim O'Brien and Ray Cole had narratives behind my back. And as the adults are pretending to be adults and pretending kids, they're painting fake things in databases, doing little tricks and telling on kids to make it look like they had communications, interactions with others that never were. And their uses of that singularly used. So there are a whole bunch of judges and prosecutors and inter-services people, male and female. They have strippers or something with the military with the name Bobby, and people that worked at UPS involved with World Trade Center attack predicate accident after it to hide that before I went to work for UPass to verify it and to give you guys means to discern it. And I'll sign that I won't sue UPS if they do it right. All I need is them onto paper. The Connecticut Interbranch forging names, switching names here. Ones with the name Oliveri are involved. Ones with the name Joshua Stryker. He's one of the ones up with predicate acts on off Trinity College. There's a Mr. Neville who was my English teacher when I was in middle school. He's increasingly tied to people involved with predicate acts in other countries, criminally foreign influence, timed collusions with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. Also, intercultural and difference themed little identity theft, fraud, fakes. I never had anything to do with them when in middle school. Then they try to make a fake exception by having another school in town, the Pearl of Weathersfield, I believe they call it. I forgot the name of the school. I didn't go to that school, but they had me take a summer school class there. And the motivations for me taking it, they lied about, has something to do with the Mr. Neville, with the intelligence community, with Vermont, and with Cromwell, Connecticut, and with Central Connecticut State University, and with the people that have been between each of the campuses, intra-campuses and inter-campuses, roll with relative predicate acts with facts, methods, why and how other was assigned to be blamed for what assigned Black pupils and whites of eyes to communicate other than it communicates by nature, where how nature communicates about how to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures. We didn't even have freshwater fish in stores. They could just live on top of each other, deep, right below ice. Vaccines. I teach us things, but long. So you guys have to follow mandated law. So that's part of we're going to examine. There's just too many things at once. They have rules with their patients and criminals so long they have to run in and hide lipoaggressions per their rules with the election locations and the parks involved, and the parks and recreation and the state and the Weathersfield town offices and the community center as the ones on off the state judicial branch offices, on off the state corrections offices, collusions. Again, with names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, the lawyers, the news, and the interbranch planting fake things at the same time, the same sequence shifts used to hide the value of what came first. See, the value of Native Americans is only increasing because of the value of what is hyper-native that is only increasing. Humanity is individual, finite, is grouped, active, and is simultaneous. 3 ways, 3 identities of order that come also with the identity of order as the value of as the value as what came or was true. Always, not denying the slight exception. If left out by if exploited by someone else or a phenomenon too, because one could sense that. See, long Black pupils had the means to discern that only fake scientists spoke for New York City. Only fake scientists spoke for the suburbs. Guys, it's harder for you to discern this. And where it's easier to discern this, you guys have it inverted because you guys are playing against the simultaneous / hyper-simultaneous. The hyper-simultaneous uses the value of the simultaneous being distinct from sequence for how it's showing us the value of the hyper-simultaneous being distinct. Vaccines. I teach us things. So I also use sources of Judge Napolitano and his YouTube channel, Judging Freedom. He brings up sources like Colonel Douglas McGregor and a Scott Ritter people associated with value treatments, positive and negative, and the difference of that differentiation regarding the Iraq, our interactions and or our non-interactions with Iraq. Names H through Z were assigned to mean and to communicate and to be. Tactical ulterior. A part of systems, tactical ulterior, from what they can't help being, but have to pretend other, in other words. This employed all groupings of humanity, even if they make ones up. You stay these systems, it stays functional to the breaching method. They're going to defend that grouping. They can't do that without self-valuing the quality aspects and nature of the bait as criminal insidious natures, like wrongdoing, self-value, wrongdoer, self-value, predicate acts with facts, methods, self-value. That's what defending the narrative about what the narratives in the natures, pretending practical reason, use Immanuel Kant's phrase, spoke for the Constitutional Convention summary properly, or use sense and sensibilities, to use Jane Austen's phrase. Every member of the Constitutional Convention individually, grouped further, and together they were tortured. They had torture methods. They were tortured by a singular method a whole bunch of ways. They were extorted by a torture method a whole bunch of ways. And they were, in fact, human nature enslaved. To blame other things, forced, triggered, hurt, and persuaded to blame, only kept only capable of blaming other things, others, ourselves, for what nature is showing us as a breaching method. It knew that nature was going to increasingly demonstrate itself to us. It understood how nature works. All stupid jerks, all A through Z. Or that body would be sensed now that reliant upon is and has been pseudo, tactically pseudo. Practicality, sophistication. Because, in other words, more energy can be created and can be saved, and way better. Evolution, fruits, gifts, means are out of nowhere. Nature benefits, all kinds of nature. By lifting water, it takes less. You can make way more and save way more by dropping water than it takes to lift it. The sea, the ocean, has long-lived isotopic particles in it, as reported by CNN. Could have been Fox News. Fox News, CNN, and NBC are great people. Everybody, this is where great people are forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to do and be evil, relative to the ones pretending people complain about things that are actually, that they actually have to complain about, in case they do, or if they do. They're changing what people say. So you have natures of reason experts that are still criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. The timing of their narratives in the news regarding how they spent time concentrating on opioids as a subject. They were using such to measure and maintain collusions with other natures of organized crime associated with the names that locations only allowed to counter such things. Vaccines. So a whole bunch of people from Yukon have roles with foreign and domestic military leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and sense. As one's on off Quinnipiac University involved with predicate acts. As one's on off all sides of Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College, where there are conscious uses of that. They have rules with untimely deaths at Trinity College. Even if that was made up, they have rules of predicate acts with ones from Wethersfield. And even if that was made up too, they were the ones timed rules with the child abusers, leaders of the kids, and used to force that. And people with whiting forensics increasingly involved with the campuses and the news, overt criminal enterprises, and private ones before they even get caught. And then as the ones timed in the hiding that by pretending passions and emotions right on Facebook, they value where and how they said, well, we have to pretend to be integrity. Of course, you have to be integrity. You have to pretend to be integrity. You all had roles of predicate acts with facts before you went into your little niches. Oh, this is my caseload. You can't speak for the law. Law doesn't. The identity of an agency shouldn't come through a difference the way you come. You guys have predicate acts with facts, wire crime methods, FBI. Here, you're caught. And you're not even a real person, so don't pretend passions and emotions. Don't pretend to perceive mine. Be capable of it or your own, or get on paper. Pick one name and sequence, because you can't be trusted now. And you have to get on paper. You guys are torturing me, extorting me, and slandering me, and enslaving me by preventing me a response on paper. Because when you try to make your excuses, you know Anthony Agnew also has recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Also pretending other, but predicate roles with Social Security and with the names on off the Social Security buildings with predicate acts, methods, and by the natures of the lawyers associated with them. As the ones on off Hartford Hospital involved with UConn, with the Violet family, and the others with the FBI, with the DeMorros, and the other agencies with the DeMorros, where the DeMorros market is now, where it used to be. These are also some KKK themed, black themed, and people associated with Mr. Abruzzi, who was my fifth grade teacher. So they recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed him involved. And with the intelligence on off, and their professors on off Central Connecticut State University, increasingly involved with relative predicate acts with facts and methods. Prosecutors, judges, the whole thing with the New Britain Superior Court, even on Facebook too. But they have roles with West Hartford locations, planting evidences with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, with the courts of Hartford, Connecticut District Court, New Britain Superior Court, and people on off the state judicial branch office, state correction offices, and along roads and routes before the attack. In the context, as the ones from Connecticut, also then in the attack context. And since, these are also people involved with remote uses of Washington, D.C. courts. In other words, and names, and roles with the value of things in the past, or if they're present, they're pretending things. There's a legitimacy to the present. They have recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed means to measure and maintain collusions, pretended integrity as law identities by using role, playing background music when they speak about serious things, like black. Yeah, pupils. Here. See whites of eyes. Prepare. In other words, on and off the founding locations at Wethersfield, Connecticut, the last of the 13 counter-extorted positions in colonies within more than 13, reportedly. In other words, they have all the books messed up too. Tactic used involved with the torture method, extortion method, slander method. We've been putting fake information for legal cases and fake medical information, fake drug information of people at the triages. That's emergency rooms. These are all we needed was one person to raise their voice properly, because it's used remotely. Are all investigators, and is all vetting of how reason works, describing nature, and or that body is sensed, even if that body is a majority of people, even if that body is a majority of countries. So one thing to speak about wealth and but simultaneously pretend not to understand the difference between the natures of wealth. And so if you try to do even with wealth, we'll show you what nature itself is about. Nature itself shows you the identity of space slash existence. Has nature as a word for identity that we need to use for identity. Every identity has relativity to positive and negative simultaneously. Every identity has relativity to quality of diffusion as a quality is active, and as the value of what is to come that we already could discern here. That again we ignore the hypernative pure, the ground's identity of relationship to itself and the value of that. Black pupils, pure, better than free. We go like that. Everyone helps like that. And we make better than paradise. Space means come out of nowhere. All of a sudden, we're vertical, horizontal things. But see, but this preaching method set up the narratives and natures and defenses of them regarding, oh, this part of New York was set up to make social. Get down. We want to go for independence, but we want unity too, but the way nature does. Tactical terror that can be afforded discerned by the identities, certain type of victim slash hyper victim predator slash hyper predator speaks for politics, speaks for subjects, as is, leaving out exception nature, leaving out the relative. Relativity is real. Hyper relativity is real. People say there are ways simultaneously to say you see evidences. There are ways to say that criminally, or there are ways to say that you don't see evidences. And see the differences between the overt criminal enterprises, the private ones, the insidiousness of logic A through Z relative to the and the interbranch or the intelligence tied to that. None of them wanted collusions, but there were exceptions made, and are exceptions made. For example, how those predicate acts were facts before they took oaths. There are proofs that people that were child abused by churches and stuff then grew up to take oaths as collusions with uses also singularly used of all the fake things typed into databases the whole time by everyone and all the motivations and natures of names uses that left that stuff out. Has something to do with their roles with the corners of buildings and of streets and of conversations with their teachers involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders against me. And Anthony Agman and people with Hartford Hospital increasingly have been lying to and with teachers of mine I don't know at all. I only had love for all my teachers. Even the ones that try to hurt me, like I value that because not that those she's Washington involved too. The one who was my speech, the first speech teacher, the one who made me stay back, has something to do with ones with the name Della Fera and Spada, as the ones involved with the wire crimes with the names on off Two Route Highway and Hangdog Lane with the name Cololo involved with the Weathersfield Police, forging and switching names, pretending people say bad things about police. They're to torture, extort, and enslave. Get them out the paper, please, because retired police chiefs have roles, predicate acts with the same house /S, and they have time collusions at elderly homes and at veterans' locations. All locations /S used remotely since before our founders were born. The suburbs were designed. We were left to describe the realities with as and associated with Old Weathersfield other than has been described. John DeMoro is one of the ones involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, with former director of the FBI Robert Luskin, also involved with sexual and medical abuses of little kids with foreign and domestic medical families, and people leading up to the World Trade Center attack in it. These are something to do with their roles with the corners on Park Street, on Church Street in Old Weathersfield. And people on that street associated with uses of my name have been planting evidences on campuses I went as the ones with timed uses of that also singularly used. And they also keep pretending, in other words, Central Connecticut State University has the name Manos by a guy named Officer Magnanos, and there are others reportedly with the name Magnanos that involved with the intelligence community at Central Connecticut State University in the roles with East Hartford locations and with predicate acts on my street and with the courts forging and switching names with judges and prosecutors and their family members who were slash are roles with overt criminal enterprises and private ones at the same time, and personally and professionally criminally involved with the medical families like Leahy, a doctor, and other doctors that Anthony Agman has involved with them, also at Social Security locations, and with the police next to the police forms next to the news media locations. So follow mandated law for your branches of government, retired and standing, please. They use crime methods of changing what people say, preventing people from mentioning predicate acts because other was recorded in every case that went before them. And there's a certain type of victim slash hyper victim that can't defend themselves and afford to discern what Jim Crow laws were about, let alone slavery. It has nothing to do with prejudice. Nothing to do with all exceptions, exception nature. You guys are leaving out the breaching method, singular. In other words, so they have identity theft, frauds, and slanders and other natures of organized crime at Quinnipiac University that is involved with where there are conscious uses of how they make the difference of political parties, and where they have uses of the names of leaders and or for example, I apologize to George Bush and to his father. From when I was a kid, sometimes I brought this up because I had caught them with predicate acts before that. And when people lie to you, not you guys, at my schools, there are people involved with predicate acts with facts. And identity theft, fraud, slander, timing where I was going to be, timing where other people were going to be. I know how to describe it and understand how it went down, how they were motivated to be criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw predators involved with keeping other things others ourselves. Blamed for the real causes of negative value nature, progressions, acts, and natures everywhere, let alone New York City and Hartford, Connecticut, which how Hartford is a suburban / urban was designed by the breaching method that knew the phenomenon of modern founders would come. And it knew how to discern that identity to the point, and then keeping containing it and adapting every time, making the eventual, where it couldn't stop it, it's already doesn't need to. Now you guys are all self-valued roles, being and having been used remotely, criminally foreign influenced, as factual in nature, and or as silence. It uses the simultaneous to show us the hyper-simultaneous. Boxings, I teach us things, but long. So there's this guy Schwartz who has a whole bunch of lawyers and people with the news media and intelligence community, including military, involved with identity, with child offenders with them, and tactical delusions, raw, drugs and medicines, crimes, health crimes. These are people faking. These are people making. These are people with research racketeering worse than war crimes too. Get down, fear. Fix the fake police, the wire crime methods, and apologize to the families of the other parents, intelligence community, as the ones juxtaposed with that difference also exploited, and make sure you apologize to the news locations because you're going to deal with it personally now. The ones involved also with the Facebook page with Joshua Julian and the Justin Joshua Stryker at Trinity College, who were planting evidences with the Weathersfield police with child offenders on off the Facebook page of the principal child offender, more with the upskirts with that and other natures of organized crimes with drugs and medicines crimes, and they're not legitimately roles with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and they barely know me. In other words, in other words, follow mandated law for your branch of government and for your World Trade Center and for Washington, if not for Connecticut. Let's go. Let's get a Connecticut into branch onto paper. Why do you guys make me draw a path to you? Well, rather than get on paper, you're leaking. What are you doing with these people with the name Corona? Too involved with a whole bunch of people with Central Connecticut State University from Weathersfield have roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders, also with their acts so others can take pictures and make fake exceptions. All along Route 175 has something to do with the names involved with that. Eric Jensen also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, and the KKK theme. They have roles with foreign and domestic, like Germany has roles with psychiatry too. How could you defend Hitler? You guys just, how could Jewish people defend Jewish people? You guys are still collusions with the medical corruption, still tactical delusions raw black people. Yeah! They're religious. They got the religious by the Jewish community centers further involved with the people planting sequence shifts and fake perception of prejudice of others. Ones with the name Zano and further with the campuses in Weathersfield, people with whiting forensics has more judges, family members, foreign and domestic families, and medical too, again. Further, as the roles with the child offenders, other natures of organized crime, body dumping spots, the witness protection program, all brought up and confirmed, tied to on Facebook too. They're hiding that with the names next to the state judicial branch offices, conjunctions to it, adjacents to it, and the difference of that exploited. Don't underestimate. Don't miss out what nature shows us with using difference. It's difference. It is showing us itself. Simultaneously, we are shown the equal value of its identity in relationship to itself, and the value of that, because we only have an extent of its complete identity to discern. But wherever we have an extent of it, its identity, its complete identity of relationship to itself is inseparable from each finite part of itself, three ways that way, all group parts of itself that way, and all simultaneous ways that way. So we could discern the slash hyper simultaneously, how it's making more of itself. This is about its identity relationship to itself. We cannot leave out, therefore. This is what generated three identities of zero, then one. And they repeat. Thank you, vaccines. Don't miss. Follow mandated law. Get them in the thing. And someone tell Judge Napolitano so if someone could. I'll donate the button. And explain and give the narrative, the syntax for it. And he could figure out how much we could get if we'll take the time to get it on there. But the whole thing will be then passed off because there's a button. If there's disputes where they have disputes resolution by the social media, because they also have conscious uses of the difference between the families of Facebook and the people that use Facebook and the agencies involved with, and the difference of that too, and the courts using it for federal evidence as crimes, replacing what's actually recorded over Facebook, lying about what they think relative to that. They have criminally foreign influence readings of statutes that require us to get them on paper. That's what our founders left us to do, and we will. Vaccines. So there was much more with this. So military also has roles with the spots next to Central Connecticut State University. A whole bunch of people tied to a Reno Mazzucato. I don't know his sister and brother's name. And the spots they were involved with identity theft, fraud, slander has something to do with their roles planting evidences all along roads and routes, like Route 175, along Weathersfield Avenue, Franklin Avenue. Weathersfield Avenue, and it's there are proofs that there is implied. Maybe it's not true, but it is implied that they have the intelligence community involved over there. Like where this breaching method uses, it showed people where they have the rights to be with criminal enterprises and to train people or whatever they're doing. They might be training people on Weathersfield Avenue regarding all the bad news, like shootings and things reported there. And where they moved the Weathersfield police station over there has a whole bunch of names on off Harvard Hospital involved with that, with predicate acts, identity thefts and frauds from other areas who have been planting evidences in my area, which is also how we could observe the hyper evidential as timed collusions with the Joshua Julian and with the Joshua Striker with identity thefts and frauds and slanders on off the campuses and on their Facebook pages. Has something to do with the names of the three spots at the end of the Berlin Turnpike who had identity theft frauds. So they let people take pictures. No, fake too. In other words, these are people increasingly with judges' family members planting evidence, identity theft, fraud, slanders rules. Increasingly like ones with the name Delafair and Spada involved with the name Kalal, with the Weathersfield Police Confessions, the ones switching names too. So make sure they don't hide from mandated law. With Judge Napolitano, they have his Facebook page involved. And this is through the difference, but they have the difference of his involvement forced by the people on off Fox Connecticut News and the spots next to it, which is right next to the state capitol. But it's also all along Main Street, which runs into Weathersfield Avenue and Franklin Avenue. And they have something to do. Central Connecticut State University has names that have been roles influenced to plant fake motivations, and use real ones, from why and how they use my name or don't, as people involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones at Central Connecticut State University that have roles on Franklin with identity theft, fraud, slanders, with and as the ones tied to the people with the name Fianza next to the state judicial branch offices. On Facebook as further roles with the principal child offenders and the ones with the name Kevin Dillon and the Anno Dillon and the Annie Dillon and others tied to them. There's a Pat Vincent too, who's one of the ones all along Route 175 involved with predicate acts and on off campus identity theft, fraud, slanders behind my back. Little sick fake punk. Yeah. Military. Get them on paper too. You guys want to play aggression? Why don't you back it up, fake punks, with this Justin Kavinsky's too? I'll destroy him first and then fight someone else in this list. I must insist. I beg you guys calmly for a response. Let's get now. I want him on paper now. Fake Branson. Bow. Get him on paper now. Prepare. We'll speak about